morning. I invite you to stand as you are able. Let's begin our time in worship together.
You're here, your love surrounds me, and in your presence I find strength. In every moment you are with me, oh God, you never leave. And I'll rest in her embrace, and I'll trust her steady grace. Oh God, you are with me, steady by my side, steady by my side. And she shows up in the still. She's there to guide, you're there to guide. You offer a peace beyond all measure and hope that does not fade. Oh God, you are with me, forever by my side. Yes, you're by my side.
Through this season,
Through the seasons, you are constant in the waiting. You remain steady like the ground beneath me. Every promise stays the same. And I'll rest in her embrace, and I'll trust her steady grace. Oh God, you are with me, steady by my side, steady by my side. And she shows up in the still. She's there to guide. Yes, you're there to guide. You offer a peace beyond all measure and a hope that does not fade. Oh God, you are with me, forever by my side. Yes, you're by my side. In the searching, in the hurting, she was always there, held me close with care. And in the waiting, and in the watching, she was always near. She is moving here. In the searching, in the hurting, she was always there, held me close with care. In the waiting, and in the watching, she was always near. She is moving here. Oh God, you are with me, steady by my side, steady by my side. And she shows up in the still. She's there to guide. Yes, you're there to guide. You offer a peace beyond all measure and a hope that does not fade. Oh God, you are with me, forever by my side. Yes, you're by my side.
Amen. I'm going to invite you to greet each other warmly this morning.
Exactly.
One step closer.
It's one of those mornings, you know. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4.
Invite you back into worship when you're ready. We sang this song last week. It's new. It's called Yes, I Will.
I count on one thing. The same God who never fails will not fail me now. You won't fail me now in the waiting. The same God who's never late is working all things out. You're working all things out. Oh yes, I will lift you high in the lowest valley. Yes, I will bless your name. Oh yes, I will sing for joy when my heart is heavy all my days. Oh yes, I will.
I count on one thing.
I count on one thing. The same God who never fails will not fail me now. You won't fail me now in the waiting. The same God who's never late is working all things out. You're working all things out. Oh yes, I will lift you high in the lowest valley. Yes, I will bless your name. Oh yes, I will sing for joy when my heart is heavy all my days. Oh yes, I will for all my days. Oh yes, I will. Yes, I choose to praise, to glorify the name of all names. That nothing can stand against. I choose to praise, to glorify the name of all names. That nothing can stand against. Oh yes, I will lift you high in the lowest valley. Yes, I will bless your name. Oh yes, I will sing for joy when my heart is heavy all my days. Oh yes, I will. Yes, I will lift you high in the lowest valley. Yes, I will bless your name. Oh yes, I will sing for joy when my heart is heavy all my days. Oh yes, I will for all my days. Oh yes, I will for all my days. Oh yes, I will. And I lift my hands to believe again. You are my refuge, you are my strength. As I pour out my heart, these things I remember. You are faithful, God, forever. there is a healing, and His love is deeper than the sea. His mercy is unfailing, and His arms a fortress for the weak. Let faith arise. Let faith arise. And I lift my hands to believe again. You are my refuge. You are my strength. As I pour out my heart, these things I remember. You are faithful, God, forever. Be still, there is a river that flows from Calvary's stream, a fountain for the thirsty. Your grace that washes over me. Let faith arise. Let faith arise. And I lift my hands to believe again. You are my refuge. You are my strength. As I pour out my heart, these things I remember. You are faithful, God, forever. And I lift my hands to believe again. You are my refuge. You are my strength. As I pour out my heart, these things I remember. You are faithful, God, forever. And let faith arise. Let faith arise. Open my eyes. Open my eyes. And let faith arise. Let faith arise. Open my eyes. Open my eyes. And I lift my hands to believe again. You are my refuge. You are my strength. As I pour out my heart, these things I remember. That you are faithful, God, forever. And I lift my hands to believe again. You are my refuge. You are my strength. As I pour out my heart, these things I remember. You are faithful, God. You're faithful, God, forever. Amen. You may be seated. At this time, I'm going to invite the ushers to please come forward to collect the offering. And as you do so, I will pray. God, thank you. Thank you for the reminder of your love through this community, through the people around us, God. Thank you for moments like these where we get to gather, we get to worship, we get to connect. And thank you for a community that just walks alongside each other and loves each other deeper, God. I pray a blessing over this time together, over the offering that is collected, and over the children's time together. Pray this all in your holy name. Amen. Good morning. Welcome. It's great to be gathered here together on this Sunday morning. I'm Samantha. My pronouns are she, her. Good morning to those who are joining us online. We are really glad that you're able to join us in this way as well. If you are new here this morning, welcome. We're really glad that you're here. If you want to know more about who we are, you can visit our website
fbcg.ca. We also have connection cards just found in the pews ahead of you. If you grab one and fill it out, there is a box at the back of the sanctuary that you can put it in, and one of us will connect with you. This morning we have junior church and intermediate church, so I'm going to dismiss those friends now. Not intermediate church, youth church. Every time. All right, my friends who are in junior church can head downstairs to the clubhouse, and my youth church friends can head upstairs with Scott. Have a good time. All right, we do have a couple of announcements this morning we wanted to bring to your attention. We have Dinner on a Dock coming up on January 21st. We'll meet here at the church in the lounge at 6:30 p.m. and we'll provide the main dish. And if you are interested in attending, if possible, if you could bring a side and dessert to share, that'd be great. This month, we'll be watching a powerful documentary called Four Little Girls about the 1963 church bombing in Birmingham, Alabama. It's an important story, and we hope that you'll join us. Next Sunday, January 25th, after our gathering, we'll be hosting a baptism information session in the lounge downstairs. So if you are interested in being baptized, or if you just have questions about what baptism looks like, we'd love for you to come out and be a part of the conversation. And our next pickleball night is January 28th. This time of year, it's especially good to get out and get moving, and pickleball is a great way to do that. We'll be meeting here at the gym downstairs from 7 to 8:30 p.m., and all are welcome. I'm going to invite Marguerite to come on up to share a special announcement.
I promised Sam that it would be an appropriate announcement this morning. I came to talk about the Faith and Justice Collective. I know most of you know that we had an Indigenous study group, we'll call it, that Wilda was leading us in. And as Wilda has transitioned to living in the beautiful France, it's just stunning where she is. Anyhow, we've shifted a little bit and kind of thought about this idea about thinking about a faith and justice collective. And so what we're trying to build a community kind of rooted on this idea that spiritual life and social justice are basically inseparable, and thinking about how we look at different faith traditions, cultural experiences that are going to shape us. And what we'd like to do is bring together a collective of like-minded bodies, souls together. And we're thinking of meeting the last Tuesday of every month. And so the idea is trying to think about building a society where dignity, equity, social justice are supported by those different sacred teachings. So what we want to do is center the discussion around Canada and what's happening in Canada, and look at what our perceived realities are, what our realistic realities are, and then being really clear about those systems of justice and equality in the country. So I'm hoping the other thing I need to tell you is that it's a developing, growing, open kind of collective. And so what we're hoping to do is kind of start and kind of see where the Lord leads us and which direction we're going to go in. So this next week, Tuesday night, join us. We're meeting at my house, which is the other thing. And it's an easy drive from here. We'll put the address in the bulletin, I think will be the easiest thing. And I think that's it. If you have any questions, just ask myself, Brent, Mike, and we'd love to see as many people. Nikki has a question. That's a very good point. 27th. So it's the last, so we still have one more. Yeah. Yeah, one more. Last Tuesday. It'll be in this one. We'll make sure it's there. Yeah, oh, you can all come to my house next week if you want, but thank you.
Thank you so much, Marguerite. Invite you back into worship.
I love you, Lord. Oh, your mercy never fails me. And all my days I've been held in your hands. From the moment that I wake up until I lay my head, I will sing of the goodness of God.
Invite you to stand as you are able. Let's sing these words.
And all my life you have been faithful. And all my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, I will sing of the goodness of God.
I love your voice.
I love your voice, 'cause you have led me through the fire in darkest night. You are close like no other. And I've known you as a father, I've known you as a friend, and I have lived in the goodness of God. And all my life you have been faithful. And all my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, I will sing of the goodness of God.
All my life.
And all my life you have been faithful. And all my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, I will sing of the goodness of God. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. With my life laid down, I surrender now. I give you everything. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. And all my life you have been faithful. And all my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, I will sing of the goodness of God. I will sing of the goodness of God. Yes, I will sing of the goodness of God.
Amen. You may be seated.
Good morning and welcome again. My name's Brent. My pronouns are he, him. And back in the fall of 2024, we hosted the Gathering Baptists, and we invited Raja Curry and Jeffrey Wilkinson to facilitate a conversation around the book that they co-authored together, The Wall Between, and what had been going on in Israel and in Gaza. And I remember thinking when we started talking about it in our planning team, about 6 months before the event, we really need to address this. How can we address this? What's going on is unbelievably terrible. There's no way that it could ever get any worse. What in the world can we do? And then I remember coming to the event thinking, I'm so glad we're addressing this. This is terrible. There's no way it can get any worse. What could we possibly do? And then thinking about coming and gathering together this morning, we have to address this. There's no way it could possibly get any worse. What in the world can we possibly do? But shortly after that initial gathering, Jeffrey and I got together. Our conversation was real, and it was honest, and it was angry, and it was heartfelt, and it was healing. It changed nothing in the outside world, but it helped me so much on the inside, just to be able to have that conversation with Jeffrey. In the Wednesday email this week, I wrote that I am grieved and that I am grateful. I'm grieved because there is a need for Jeffrey to be with us. I am grateful because Jeffrey is thoughtful and inclusive and empathetic and so open to listen. I am grieved because there are so many who would look on those qualities as weaknesses. I am grateful because Jeffrey is willing to share his time and wisdom and his own honest struggles with us as we struggle together ourselves. I'm grieved because there are so many who would call themselves followers of Christ, who would use the Bible to justify the horrors of genocide. I'm so grateful for Jeffrey's spirit and for Jeffrey's presence. I'm so grateful that he is a voice in our larger community for peace and honesty and worth and dignity. And I'm grateful that he is here this morning to continue the conversation, to help us as we struggle, as we question, and as we wonder in terms of this unbelievably difficult issue. So would you join me in welcoming Jeffrey back with us this morning?
That is quite the introduction. Thank you. It's very nice to be here. I'm slightly naked because I usually speak with my colleague and dear friend Raja Khoury, but you just get me this morning. So I like, the only thing that Brent didn't list is I like small challenges. So my small challenge is that I'm going to give you an overview of two 3,000-year histories. I'm going to talk about how the conflict that we have today happened, and I'm going to fill you with all the events that have happened in the last 2 years, which average about, 35 a day. And then I'm going to give you some spiritual sort of thoughts and reflections about how we respond as people of faith or of spiritual practice. And I'm going to do that in 20 minutes. So the only other thing I want to be really clear about, I apologize to any scholars in the room of Israel-Palestine, because this is kind of a 101, and it isn't even that. Because I'm not going to fill you with facts, I'm going to fill you with impressions. I want you to see the slides. Many of them I won't even speak about. Just want you to, how do I feel when I see this? Is it shifting or changing my assumptions? Did I already know this or did I not? Why did I know a particular story in a particular way? And why haven't I heard this story? So I want you to be thinking in that way as we go through this short talk. And then there'll be about 10 minutes of Q&A at the end. And then I've got a little small musical reflection for you. So, off we go. So here's my challenges. So when you think of the Jewish people, I want you to think for a minute, what do you think? Do you have an image in your mind of a person, all dressed in black with curly little things at their side called payas, and a hat, which we call a kippah or yarmulke? Do you picture a businessman? How do you picture it? So I just want you to sit with that. Well, as you probably are aware, Jews are just like everybody else. We come in all shapes and sizes. We come from different places. We are basically a diaspora people. That means spread out. And we've been spread out for a very long time. Over the last 75 years or so, we're basically split half and half. There's about 15 million Jews in the world. About half live somewhere in the world, and the other half live in Israel. It's kind of 50-50. So these are large enough you can see the print. You can't see how many people are having trouble seeing the print? Because I don't really want to read the slides. So there's a couple. If you're in the back, may I be brave and suggest you come to the front? And then you can see. It's Sunday. I don't bite on Sundays. All righty. Or you can even come close to one of the side screens if that's easier for you. So the important one from a feeling emotional place is the third one. To be Jewish is to be displaced, to experience loss, and to feel persecuted. This loss and displacement and persecution, for many, have made it either difficult or impossible to truly empathize with another group that we've participated in their loss and displacement. And that's really the essence of this conversation. So you probably, if you've been to Sunday school, you're probably somewhat familiar with the 12 tribes and where they lived, and not really important other than to feel an image and to know that at this time, we're talking 3,000 years ago, there was what is usually reflected on, in our teachings of the Torah and the Haftarah, is this is sort of the golden age. At the time of the building of the first temple, the real experience of Jewish nationalism, in a sense, in the area that we were in. Whoops. Something went funny. That's weird. Let me just go here. So we're at the Roman Empire. Good job. Boy, Dean is psychic. He just knows where to go. This really all changed a few times. So let's just go back one slide to the book. I'm sorry, Dean, can we go back one slide just for a minute? So it's important to note at the sort of end of this golden age, the Babylonian people led by King Nebuchadnezzar kind of took us over and got rid of all Jewish practice and destroyed the first temple. The temple for Jews is sort of the location or home of being where God is. Okay? After a while, this ended. A temple was rebuilt about 70 years after its destruction. Things were good. And then we get the Holy Roman Empire. And as you can see, that sort of dominated the entire land. And the Jews truly became a diaspora people in about 70 AD with the destruction of the Second Temple. All of these things are both historical facts and emotional resonances. So it is less about what happened and more about how it made the collective Jewish brain feel, which is threatened, very isolated, very concerned for its well-being. Hey, so you probably heard this term a little bit called anti-Semitism. It's a complex term. I could speak to you for, 2 days on anti-Semitism. So we're gonna break it down very, very simply. At its core, it is a negative stereotypical belief about people who are Jewish or people you presume to be Jewish. It started really as a faith-based practice built largely around the mythology that Jews are responsible for killing Jesus. That led to long periods of deep isolation within the communities that they lived in. It included something you might have heard of called the blood libel. So just so you know how crazy this thing is we call the brain, they actually believed about the 10th, 11th century that Jews killed Christian children and used their blood to make the matzahs that we eat at Passover. Now, this is not a logical thing, right? This is an emotional thing. How do I talk about these people in a negative way? Jews of the Middle Ages were not allowed to own property. Lots of businesses they were banned from. So what did they do? They're very ingenious people. They created some wealth and they lent money. If you've ever seen Shakespeare's Merchant of Venice, you kind of get the stereotype of the Jewish usurer who lends money and then greedily gets it back from people. These stereotypes have largely shaped anti-Semitism until about the late 19th century, when anti-Semitism shifted into more of a race-based practice. But in those 1600 years, there was lots and lots and lots of times of persecution and removal, probably the most famous being the Spanish Inquisition of 1492. Okay. At the same time, there's another group of people. Judaism is a little over 3,000 years old as a practice, whereas the practice of Islam is about 1,500 years old. The Prophet Muhammad lived in the 7th century, early 7th century. And around the late 7th century up until about the 10th century, much of the land of what is now Middle East and Asia was dominated by Islam. It was a very, very forward-thinking practice. Much of the scientific discoveries of the time were made by Islamic people. They were incredibly ingenious and thoughtful people. A shifting moment you might have heard of is called the Crusades, when Christians invaded all parts of the land and pretty much equally persecuted Muslims and Jews. A lot of our history is very shared. I've already talked a little bit about the Jewish diaspora experience. So at the end of the 13th century, the Ottoman Turks became the dominant group. And they ruled all of the Middle East for about 600 years, all the way up until the end of World War I. This is important for a lot of different reasons, but probably the most important is that this is the time when the indigeneity of the Palestinian people became ingrained. So most of the people of what is today is Israel were Arab. Well over 88%, close to 90% until the earliest 20th century, when there was late 19th and early 20th, and I'll talk just a little bit about that in a second. So you've probably heard of a term called a pogrom, which is an assault on a group of people because of who they are. It can be a detention, it can be arrests. I think some might suggest that some of what's happening in the US could be considered a pogrom. These were particularly horrible and violent. Sorry, I didn't say go forward, but you got it. In Eastern Europe and what today is Russia. Thousands and thousands of Jews were persecuted, many were murdered, and they were looking for a safe place to go. Well, mine's not working now. Okay. Thank you. So that led us to this thing called Zionism. So Zion is Jerusalem. That is the center, of Palestine, of all of the area that is now contested in the land. And it's really the home, the central home to three great religions: Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. At its core, Zionism is a national movement for the Jewish people to have a homeland. But I'm always going to help you with the tension. Somebody else was there. Right? So the tension in Zionism is that Jews were deeply unsafe in Europe. Rampant anti-Semitism, even in the late 19th century. So a group of wealthy businessmen and others got together and said, we need to do something. So they had a conference and they said, we're going to create a homeland in our spiritual home, which is Israel or the land of Palestine. Zionism is a contested term. If you have seen protests and others, you will hear sometimes people say very, very aggressive things about, you're a Zionist, and that makes you hateful and evil. Zionism means many, many different things to many in my community. To some, it literally is a cultural experience of a place where they speak Hebrew, and where at Friday night, if you grow up here, it's really cool. Friday night Shabbat, the whole world shuts down. Saturday evening, when the sun comes down, thousands of Jews flood the cafes and the theaters and the squares, and we all eat and celebrate together. You don't do that here. So for some, that's what it is. For others, it's a national project of self-determination, which is also a very complex term that I could talk to you about a lot. So we have a right, all people have a right to self-determination, to be where they want and to practice what they want. But do they have a right to do it where somebody else had that right and now no longer does? And that is the central tenet of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, is that what I gained, I took from Raja and others. And we've seen that play out very intensely in the last 2 years. Thank you. So now we're going to kind of shift to how the experience of today happened. So I'm going to frame this very intellectual term, Orientalism, which really applies to all people of the East, but we're just going to talk about it as Middle Eastern Arab Palestinians. A framework that sees Arabs, Muslims, and Palestinians as the other. So I want to say a couple really, really quick things. The other does not exist. We create them. The other is those that we determined are not like us. How many people think or value the concept of community? Good. Community has a second phase. To make an us, you have to have a them. So we glorify community, and community is a great thing, don't get me wrong. But community becomes tribalistic, which is about belonging. If you've ever had a deep, sort of hard, a political conversation with someone who feels differently than you think that you're talking about political opinions. You're actually talking about belonging. You're threatening their place in the world. And to understand that is how you begin to overcome it. So, again, real intense history here. Don't want you to think, oh, what's the Sykes-Picot Agreement? Anybody here heard of the Sykes-Picot Agreement? Whoa, I'm impressed. 1, 2. That's amazing. So I apologize for this rudimentary talk, because that's high level. So here's the image I want you to get. In secret, a French and an English leader sat in a room together with what today we would call magic markers and divided up land that didn't belong to them. They were pretty sure that the Allied group was going to win World War I, and they were chopping up the spoils. If anyone has studied, global history, you will know that some imperial power is at the root of every problem that we see in the world today. Somebody, created something they wanted and then left the mess. This is what happened in Sykes-Picot. A year or so later, a high official, what is basically like the Secretary of State of Britain, Lord Balfour, made a 2-paragraph declaration that said it is the intention of Her Majesty's Kingdom to create a Jewish homeland in Palestine. Now, you can just imagine the 88% of Palestinian Arabs who dominated the land, how they took this. not well. So the first sort of deep image, or maybe the second I want you to take away today, is you will often hear people saying, this is a 3,000-year-old conflict, they've always hated each other, and they'll never get along, it's all about religion, and forget it. That is untrue. The conflict we exist in today is about 100 years old. For the most part, Jews and Muslims lived happily together. Not always and not everywhere, but by and large. Even in this period up until the founding of Israel in 1948, I have spoken to many people whose grandparents were good friends with Palestinians and Jews together. They played games together, they had dinner together. This animosity really took off here in 1917, when the powers that be took one side at the opposition to the other side. All right, you want to go forward or you not? Thank you. Don't think this needs a lot of conversation, except to say that no matter how many movies and books you've read about the Holocaust, it is impossible to begin to ingest it if you've not grown up around the Shabbat table and the Passover table where your parents and grandparents talked about being in Auschwitz. The Holocaust is not a historical event for Jews. It is the proof that they will always hate us. I want to be clear, I do not subscribe to these ideas, but the vast majority of Jews do, and I understand why. Okay. The Holocaust was such an overarching event. If you can imagine, I told you earlier that there's about 15 million Jews in the world. In 75, 80 plus years of repopulation, and particularly Orthodox Jews love to have babies, we still do not have as many Jews in the world as we had in 1939. That's something to get you. Thank you. So back to the magic markers again. The fledgling United Nations that was formed right after World War II. Britain had been sort of in charge of the area. It was called the British Mandate. Both Jews and Arabs hated Britain's engagement in the land, fought them tooth and nail. And the Brits at the end of World War II said, we're out of here, we're done. And they said to the United Nations, you fix it. So they took out their magic markers again and they created a plan that said, okay, this will be Palestinian and this will be Jewish. What you've probably heard is that the Jews of the area accepted the plan and the Arabs did not. And all I'd ask you, I'll give you a simple image. You have a house. I came and took your house. And I said, I'm in a charitable mood. How about I give you back that third floor bedroom with the drafty window? Would that solve things between us? That's how the partition plan and every single peace plan that has been created since lands for Palestinians. They're offering the drafty bedroom without even an apology for taking the house in the first place. So this failure of the UN partition plan led to a war which Jews call the War of Independence and Palestinians called the Nakba, which is Arabic for catastrophe. It is catastrophic because over 400 Arab villages were wiped off the map. 750,000 roughly Palestinians were either forced to leave or chose to leave and were not allowed to come back. About 20% of Israel today, citizens are Arab, so some state are Arab Palestinians, and they have rights. They don't have equal rights, but they have rights. The vast majority of Palestinians live in the West Bank or Gaza or East Jerusalem with varied to limited to no rights. So there's the independence. Israel's, could we go to the next slide, please? Thank you. So I'm not going to talk to this. This is Israel today. Okay? So just kind of briefly understanding, at the original partition plan, is about 56% to Arabs, even though they were about 78% of the population at the time. At the end of the 1948 war, it was down to about 47%. It is now 22% of the land is Palestinian. And we say, international recognized borders, we mean under international law. The Six-Day War was another significant turning point, happened in June of 1967. Chopped up more of the land and created basically the way things are divided today. The real history that got us, can we go to the next slide? The real history that kind of got us to where we are today is the 67 forward history. And I know it's a lot, and for some of your eyes are glazing over and you go, boy, this is too much for me. I'll try to make it as easy and simple as possible. You basically can support bad actions by believing that you didn't have a choice. It was us or them, so you got to take, right? Because they're going to get you if you don't. This is the underpinning of Jewish nationalist project called Zionism. And the reason I talk to you about everything that happened in the Middle Ages and the Holocaust is not to excuse that action, but to give you some understanding for why that might be there. Because once the brain decides its way of viewing the world is as a victim, it is next to impossible to see yourself as a victimizer. We should tell, as Jews, the story of the crimes that have been committed against us. But now we also have to tell the story of the crimes that we're committing against someone else. And that's very difficult to do. That's very, very hard. So as you would imagine, an oppressed people, thank you, are not very happy. And they resist. So the general experience you'll see in media and so on is that the Palestinians never wanted peace, and they're just going to have to, mollify and make agreements. And I would suggest to you that if you want someone to stop fighting back at you, stop doing the things that make them want to fight back. And, in today's world in Israel-Palestine, that is the occupation, which means that Israel militarily occupies the West Bank, East Jerusalem, and Gaza. Before the Gaza war that you've experienced in the last 2 years and a bit, there was a 17-year blockade of Gaza. Nothing went in, no people, nothing. Nothing went out, except with the permission of the Israeli government. Power was on selectively at certain times of day. People couldn't use the fishing rights on the sea. The children of Gaza grew up in this horrible environment that has been recognized as the world's largest open-air prison. That does not excuse violence, but it helps explain it. So the first, what's called intifada or uprising, it really means to shake off, to resist or shake off. It has been painted here in the West as an inherently violent act. It is not necessarily a violent act. Thank you. The actors you've heard a lot about is Hamas. I'm not going to give you, again, a long history of Hamas, but note that they are a symptom of a larger problem, not the problem themselves. They're bad actors. I hate them. I don't want them there. They're bad for Palestinians. They're bad for Jews. They're bad for everybody. But they're there because they are the only resistance force that pushes back on what Israel does to Palestinians. So if you don't want Hamas, you got to get rid of the reason for them being there. I want you to hear the part that these wars that has been so, in the news, right? I'm sorry, can we go back to Amos for just a sec? So in the news lately, there's been many Gaza wars. And in each of these, several thousand Palestinians are killed every time. This has been by far the worst, but in every time they do. And I put this sort of painful saying, literally the government calls incursions into Gaza mowing the lawn. That gives you a sense of how Palestinians are not seen as fully human or respected as true people. Peace plans. Again, a 6-hour talk with an exam at the end. Let's just say lots of attempts have been made and they failed. Why did they fail? 3 basic reasons. One is because the interlocutor was the US and they're not a trustworthy interlocutor because they have their own needs. Peace for them is having stability so they can use their, have military bases and economic interests / oil. Right? So when you have an unfaithful interlocutor, that's never going to work. 2, the power is too imbalanced. In the end, Israel and the West is always going to get to decide what works and what doesn't. And 3, nothing has ever been proven to the Palestinian people that the other side is serious about what they're offering. The Arab leadership, the Palestinian leadership, has lots to account for. They don't get a free pass. They've screwed this up from the very beginning, and they deserve a lot of the discredit. But in the end, if you need to solve a conflict, the people in power are the ones who change course, not the people without it, no matter how faulty they are. Okay. Thank you. The Second Intifada was very violent. It came primarily because of the failures of the Oslo Accord. They were promised peace and it didn't happen. These are the horrible images. This created what we have today. This created the Netanyahu government. This created the far right in Israel. This demolished much of the left in Israel because it was horrible. Thousands of Israeli citizens were killed in various bombings in buses and cafes, and the brutal retaliation on the citizens of Gaza and the West Bank, we've never really recovered from. Thank you. It created this, which is a giant wall around the West Bank, which is sometimes called the separation barrier, the apartheid barrier, the safety wall, depending on who you are, aligned with. If people are old enough or have ever been to New York City, there's a famous hotel called the Waldorf Astoria. So somebody made a little polite joke here and called this the Walled-Off Hotel. It's actually there. Okay, what am I doing? All right. So October 7th, again, sit for just a second. Can you go back to October 7th, 8th, and experience what you felt when you heard this news of this very violent incursion? You heard stories of some of which are, have been proven false, but some are true, of real horrible atrocities. We know that about 1,200 Jews were killed on that day and about 250 were taken hostage. There's lots of other things that are up for debate, but those things we know. How did you feel? The vast majority of people in the West felt deep sadness. This sadness is in part because we're, I think, hopefully naturally compassionate people, but because we all have friends who are Jewish. We all have colleagues who are Jewish. And this event threw the Jewish community back 75 years. Immediately, leaders came out and said, as Joe Biden said, that this was the deadliest day of Jewish killings since the Holocaust. It is factually true, and I want you to feel the emotion of it. The 6 million of the Holocaust were brought into October 2023, making it basically impossible for Jews to separate their historical trauma from their present trauma. This, I'm being very frank with you, has been operationalized and manipulated by people who want to promote the Israeli position and don't want to talk about Palestinian suffering. They are not exclusive. We must do both. Thank you. So this is just a couple of thousands of pictures that you've probably seen on your TV screens. If you are a young person or know a young person, I want you to know they don't get their news from the television. They watch this every day on their cell phone, and way worse. They see mutilated babies, covered in sheets. This is what led to the campus protests. This is what led to the encampments, because they are rightly incensed. Because this is what they see, and they see it all day, every day. They don't know the nuances of the history. They know right from wrong, and this looks wrong to them. To be able to kind of place the relational piece, this is a picture, on the right of the screen that I showed you earlier of people, Palestinians being expelled from their homes in 1948, and Palestinians being expelled from their homes in northern Gaza to southern Gaza, which happened 6 or 7 different times in the last 2 years, moved to different places. So for a Palestinian, the Nakba is today. It's not back then, it's now. So, this is usually the beginning of a 45-minute talk. So again, we're just doing images, right? How do we navigate 2 groups of victims? The Palestinian thinker, Edward Said, said of Palestinians, we are victims of the victims and refugees of the refugees. That is the best way I can help you understand the emotional context of the conflict. If you do human rights, social justice work like Marguerite was talking about, you usually have a victim and a perpetrator and a victim. You don't here. Yes, Israel is the dominant power and they are the perpetrator. But Jews as a people are both victims and victimizers, which really complicates the situation. You can't deal with it in the same way you might deal with other social justice issues. So, are we doing okay time-wise? Okay. So here's the part that really made me go, seriously? You want me to do this in the last part of a 20-minute talk? So the first thing I want to say is the fact that you come to a spiritual place, some of you every Sunday, awes me, because I don't know how. I don't know how to sit in faith. I don't know how. I used to go to synagogue pretty well every week. I went to a special minyan service on Tuesday mornings, half to pray and half to eat bagels and cream cheese. I don't have a place to go pray because there's an Israeli flag in the building. I can't. So the fact that you show up in the middle of everything that's happening around you and sing these beautiful songs, you're already grappling. And I just appreciate you for doing that, because I don't know how to do it. I have a private spiritual practice, but not a public one. Thank you. You can show the whole slide if you would. So I'm going to give you some sort of guiding principles that I use and see if they're useful to you. The first one is the only one that matters. Is there anyone here, I'm going to put you on the spot, who does not believe that every human life is of equal value? Anyone? Your participation in the country of Canada doesn't prove that to be true. Because every human life is not treated with equal value. Here in Canada, every human life is not treated as equal value. So we start out with a competition between what we know we should feel and what we actually do. So in my community, varies from, I don't really care anymore what happens to Palestinians after what they did to us. I don't care. It's their fault. They all get killed, so what? That's a fringe minority, but it exists. The vast majority feel something like, that's horrible that this is happening, but what can one do? If I have to choose between my safety and theirs, I'm taking mine every day. What they don't understand is that Jewish safety and Palestinian rights are permanently intertwined. You cannot have one without the other. Unless Palestinians are fully recognized as full rights and citizens of the entire land, you will never have safety for anyone. That's just a fact. No matter what your politics are, that's just a fact. I can't alter that. That's gravity. And oppressed people will always resist their oppression. That's gravity. It just is. There's nothing you can do about it. You don't have to accept it, but it's still going to fall. Like you don't have to accept that if I drop that glass, it's going to fall. It's still going to fall. It's gravity. Okay? Peace and justice are not equal. When you say peace, ask yourself, what do you mean? Do you mean the absence of violence? Peace in the Middle East has been a way to keep the status quo in place. Get the problems to go away so we don't have to look at them anymore. That's not peace. A person can be, and I say this both about Jews and about us as individuals, can be traumatized, deeply traumatized and victimized, righteously traumatized and victimized, and still victimize someone else. You don't get a get-out-of-jail-free card because you've been hurt. We have, I'm sure, all witnessed people who are oppressed at one level and hold negative feelings towards somebody else about who they are. Our brain just doesn't work that way. It doesn't say, oh, I get it. I'm oppressed. I'm going to help everybody. Because the brain's job is to keep you safe. So its immediate reaction is to keep out that story that feels threatening. It's just how it is. Don't take sides. I'm not here to get you to be more pro-Palestinian. It might sound like it, but I'm not. I'm here to get you to take more morally value-centered positions. If you want your practice to match your belief system that every human life is of equal value, then you must use your feet, your voice, and your money to ensure that that happens. In this particular discussion, it means recognizing that the status quo of how the West has always sided with Israel will keep this conflict going forever. I don't want you to become anti-Israel. Sure as heck don't want you to become anti-Jewish. But I want you to resist the forces around you that suggest that Jews are unsafe because Palestinians have voices. I want you to do that. I want you, lastly, to recognize that as a whole, Christians have a big role to play. Particularly in the U.S., the most active Forceful Zionists are not Jews. They're Christians. It's less so in Canada. It's here, but it's less so. And I really want you to grapple with that. It is the evangelical Christian Zionist movement that funds settlements, that pushes the government towards pro-Israel policies. I want you to ask, is that a Christian thing to do? Really early on, people in our talks would often say, who are Christian? What do I as a Christian do? And the weird words that always came out of this Jewish body was, ask what Jesus would do. Seems simple enough. I'm not a practicing Christian, but everything I've ever seen and read about Jesus, and I was Marguerite knows, was very involved in a Christian life at one point because of my mother, who converted to Christianity, when I was very young. Charity, forgiveness, not being judgmental, seeking truth, not being aligned with power just because it's more powerful. That seems like the basis of what it is to be Christian. So ask what Jesus would do. I don't think he'd sit idly by why 70,000 Gazans were killed and hundreds, thousands were starved to death intentionally. I don't think he'd sit by. I know I won't. So as is normal, if you hear me speak, I have soft, easy messages that are no problem to digest. Let's open the floor for however long you want, and at the end of the question period, I'm going to play a little piece of music for you. It's from the movie Schindler's List, which is a Holocaust movie. But I don't want you to think about that alone. I want you to think about the weeping that John Williams put into that music as a global experience. I want you to feel the children in Auschwitz and the children in Gaza together. I want you to hold those traumas together as you listen and reflect. Okay. You can ask me whatever you want, but if you want to get more out of it, it's probably make it personal. Like, what do you struggle with? What do you want to feel, rather than what happened in 1936? But you can ask me whatever you want, but I think you'll get more out of it if you ask what you're wrestling with. There's Aaron, and there's a hand in the back there.
Okay, and can I just say this now? I want to respect those who are working with our children and our youth, and we're already a little bit over time, so we're going to do just a couple, maybe 3 questions, and then we're going to keep going, okay? Jeffrey will hang around for a little bit
Of course.
afterwards, so you can ask questions,
Yeah.
but I want to respect those who are taking care of our others.
Perfect.
Nope, our smaller humans.
Gotcha.
Okay, yeah, right?
Good morning.
Good morning, Aaron.
My question is, how are you accepted within the Jewish community today? And how strong of a movement is there within the Jewish community for equivocation between the two sides and to see,
Right.
actually
Thank
see
you.
both sides equally?
That's a great question. Did everyone hear the question okay? Okay. Should I answer that before the second question? And we'll, okay. That's a great question. So he asked how I was accepted. So I'll just give you a small anecdote. Raj and I are speaking in a large event in London on Tuesday, and the Jewish organizations of London would not advertise our event because we are labeled as anti-Semitic. So, and they're not allowed to advertise events of anti-Semites. So, I'm sure you didn't hear anything this morning that would suggest that a Jewish person whose grandparents were in the Holocaust is an anti-Semite. But this is how polarized the conversation is. So in mainstream Jewish community, we are not accepted. And sometimes that's very painful. There is a growing movement, particularly amongst young Jews, who have not lived with the trauma in the same way, to say, this is wrong. I'm not doing this. This feels wrong. And they are They are front and center at the campus protests and many other places. So yes, there is a growing move of two things in Judaism. Well, there's the hard thing, and then there's two sort of left-leaning things. One is to have these conversations. And over the last 2 years, we've had many conversations with Jews and Palestinians together who want to get to know each other and understand each other. And then there's a protest movement within the Jewish community. There's a very active group here called, IJV, or Independent Jewish Voices, and they are absolutely committed to the Palestinian cause. My work's a little, I support them 100%. My work's a little different because I want to open the tent up. So I'll sit with people who say hateful things to me because I don't know how else to get movement. Thank you for your question.
Thank you for being here. Really appreciate your words and your position. And you may have just answered what I was going to ask, so maybe I'll pivot on the spot. I was going to ask, you don't get up and come to a place like this if you don't have hope.
Right.
So you have hope. So I was going to ask where do you center that hope, whether it's in one spot? I've been kind of tracking with this for probably the better part of 2 decades. And I've gone from hope in the self-serving pragmatism of political power. I've been let down by that.
Okay.
The human rights movement within Israel itself has been very strong on Palestinian rights. That hasn't seemed to materialize. So I was going to ask where you find.
I hope you're still asking because I'd love to answer that question.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, I think part of it was what we were saying around.
Yeah.
There are young
Right.
Jews, even people who were part of Zionism within Israel, who are now saying, "I can't do it anymore."
Right.
So that is definitely sort of a spot of hope. So feel free to answer that. But then I guess as you were answering that question, it occurred to me, do you feel like we're at a tipping point? We all talk about the arc of, and I'm paraphrasing, the arc of history is long, but it bends towards justice. Are we bending closer to justice than we have, despite the fact that it looks more horrific now than it ever has?
That's a really great, they're two great questions. I'll answer them very briefly. So yes, the move towards understanding the Palestinian story and doing something about it gives me hope. The prime reason I hope is because I can choose to, and people in Gaza can't. So it's an imperative to me because I get to choose. The people I talk to in Gaza and the West Bank are hopeful because the alternative is death. I don't have to do that. I get to choose to be hopeful, so I choose it. The second part is more complicated, but I'll answer as kind of best I can. There is definitely an arc that has shifted deeply since October 7th. We used to ask our audiences things like, I'm sure we did this when we talked here, how many people have heard of the Nakba? We get 4 hands. Now 2/3 to 3/4 know what the Nakba is. So there is an information gap that has been shifted, and that's huge. There is subtle movements in the U.S. political body towards thinking differently about Israel. The challenge with any change is that those who hold the status quo don't want change. So, we've just written an update to the book, and it's about the push and pull between this movement towards Palestinian justice and the pushback to ensure that Palestinians are ignored. And both are very powerful and very painful. If you read an opinion piece, basically any day in any major newspaper, there will be a piece that said Jews are being attacked on the streets. This is done very intentionally so that we don't have to talk about Gaza. Yes, anti-Semitism is a bad thing, and it's present. And much of the way it is talked about is politicized in order to get you to not talk about Gaza. Do you want, are we good? Should we stop? Pardon?
Well, we will close off the questions so that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I will stay as long as you. Okay, switch gears.
I'm grieved because we have to talk about such things, but I am grateful that we have a place to do that. I'm grateful for you being here and wrestling and wanting to wrestle and just showing up. And so, God, go with us. We have the luxury of hoping. And so we center that around you, asking what it would be, how we can be your hands and feet, how we can better love our neighbor, how we can be salt and light and good where you have put us. Thank you for this space and this place and being able to be together. And go with us with your courage and your hope, we pray in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Thanks for being here, everybody. Thanks for staying a little bit late today.